There is a pervasive myth in the digital world that superior specifications inevitably conquer the market, assuming that if an industry builds a technological marvel, you will blindly open your wallet to adopt it. But the graveyard of consumer electronics is overflowing with billion-dollar miscalculations that forgot the most crucial element of the equation. You are about to uncover the ultimate cautionary tale of a product that promised to revolutionize your living room, only to become the most spectacular hardware rejection of the modern era. Why did an entire category of supposedly revolutionary displays, backed by the deepest pockets in the tech sector, vanish from store shelves almost overnight? The answer goes far deeper than a simple lack of compelling content or temporary manufacturing hurdles. It strikes at the very core of how you interact with media, revealing a massive disconnect between boardroom marketing strategies and the actual practical realities of your daily life. Rewind to the turn of the decade when the Consumer Electronics Show, universally known as CES, transformed into an absolute frenzy of stereoscopic promises. Every major manufacturer, from Samsung to LG to Sony, completely pivoted their flagship lineups to feature 3D TV. Walking the convention floor felt like stepping into a sci-fi utopia, with aggressive marketing campaigns declaring that flat, two-dimensional viewing was officially obsolete and that you were missing out on the future. This massive hardware push was entirely catalyzed by a single piece of media that temporarily warped the industry's perception of reality. James Cameron's groundbreaking film Avatar shattered box office records and made stereoscopic depth look like the inevitable future of all visual storytelling. Executives saw those record-breaking ticket sales and immediately assumed you wanted to replicate that exact same To achieve that illusion of depth, manufacturers had to rely on cumbersome hardware barriers that fundamentally altered the casual nature of watching television. You were no longer just casually turning on a screen to unwind. You were gearing up for a highly specific, orchestrated viewing event. The industry split into two competing, highly flawed methodologies, starting with the heavily promoted active shutter glasses. This technology relied on battery-powered lenses that rapidly turned opaque in alternating sequence, syncing perfectly with the display to feed a different image to each eye. It was an incredibly complex engineering feat designed to maintain full high-definition resolution, but it came with severe physiological costs that the marketing brochures conveniently ignored. The reality of wearing active shutter technology was nothing short of a premium-priced endurance test for your optic nerves. The glasses were heavy, required constant charging, and the rapid alternating opacity created a subtle but persistent flickering effect in your peripheral vision. For a massive percentage of the population, this relentless strobing triggered severe eye strain, headaches, and a profound sense of physical disorientation after just a few minutes of viewing. The alternative was passive polarized glasses, the exact same lightweight, inexpensive plastic frames you used at the local multiplex. While these eliminated the battery requirement and drastically reduced the flickering headaches, they introduced a devastating compromise to the actual picture quality. Passive tech worked by splitting the screen's vertical resolution in half, simultaneously delivering alternating lines of pixels to each eye, effectively destroying the crisp fidelity of your expensive display. You were essentially forced into a lose-lose scenario by the very companies demanding a premium for this supposed upgrade. You had to choose between a heavy, headache-inducing strobe light strapped to your face, or a drastically degraded, blurry picture that ruined the pristine 1080p resolution you had just paid top dollar for. Neither of these options represents a king-tier tech decision. They represent a fundamental failure of user-centric design that ignored basic human comfort. Even if you possessed an iron stomach and managed to ignore the visual compromises, a display panel is ultimately only as valuable as the media it can present. This brings us to the devastating reality of the content scarcity cliff that doomed the ecosystem from day one. You brought home this incredibly expensive hardware, set up the cumbersome accessories, and quickly realized there was virtually nothing to watch that actually utilized the technology. After you finished watching your bundled Blu-ray copy of Avatar, the available library of native stereoscopic content was shockingly barren. Broadcasters attempted a handful of experimental sports feeds, and studios churned out poorly converted, post-production 2D movies that looked like cheap cardboard cutouts layered on top of each other. The immersive, breathtaking depth promised by the marketing campaigns was completely absent from 99% of the media you actually consumed on a daily basis. The industry expected you to pay a massive financial premium for a feature you might utilize for 2 hours a month, entirely inverting the concept of a solid value proposition. You were sinking hundreds, sometimes thousands of extra dollars into a television set for a gimmick that actively degraded your viewing experience the rest of the time. The mathematical reality of this investment simply did not work in favor of the everyday consumer. When placed side by side against standard, high-quality flat panels, the stereoscopic models revealed another glaring technical limitation that marketers desperately tried to hide. The viewing angle on these specialized panels was notoriously narrow, requiring you to sit in a rigid, perfectly centered sweet spot to maintain the illusion of depth. Sit slightly off-center on your own couch, and the image immediately shattered into a crosstalk-riddled double-vision mess that was entirely unwatchable. This rigid viewing requirement completely ignored the inherently social and casual nature of how humans actually interact with televisions in their homes. Watching TV is often a passive, shared experience where people move around the room, look at their smartphones, and chat with family members. The new technology demanded absolute unblinking attention while locking you into a specific physical location, turning casual entertainment into a strict, physically demanding chore. Furthermore, the requirement that every single person in the room needed their own specific, synchronized eyewear created an absurd barrier to entry for a simple movie night. If you had 4 friends over but only owned 2 pairs of expensive active lenses, half the room was entirely excluded from the experience. It turned a communal living room into an isolated, fragmented environment where the technology actively dictated and restricted your social interactions. The friction was simply too high. And true technological innovation is defined by its ability to seamlessly remove friction from your life, not strap it directly to your face. Consumers are incredibly savvy when it comes to their comfort and their wallets, and they quickly recognized that the showroom hype did not match the living room reality. The market responded with a swift, brutal, and entirely justified rejection of the entire category. Sales data plummeted as buyers actively avoided the stereoscopic models, voting with their dollars for larger, higher-quality 2D displays that delivered actual measurable improvements to their daily viewing. Retailers found themselves sitting on massive stockpiles of unsold inventory, forced to slash prices drastically just to clear out the specialized hardware from their warehouses. The grand vision of a fully immersive, three-dimensional living room was rapidly collapsing under the weight of its own impracticality. Recognizing the massive consumer apathy, major broadcasters and satellite providers quietly began pulling the plug on their dedicated, highly publicized stereoscopic channels. The infrastructure and bandwidth costs required to transmit these massive dual-feed signals were astronomical, and it made zero financial sense to maintain them for an audience that simply was not tuning in. The content pipeline, already a mere trickle from the very beginning, completely dried up and vanished from the programming guides. This spectacular collapse was not just a minor product failure. It served as a massive industry-wide wake-up call for every major player in the consumer electronics space. The top manufacturers learned an incredibly expensive lesson about the limits of marketing power and the absolute necessity of prioritizing the user experience above boardroom gimmick. You cannot force a massive shift in viewing habits without offering an overwhelmingly frictionless, undeniable benefit that improves daily life. Fortunately for you, this monumental failure birthed the true king-tier visual innovations that currently dominate the premium display market. Chastened by the rejection of their stereoscopic dreams, manufacturers immediately redirected billions of dollars in research and development toward actual, universally beneficial picture quality improvements. The swift death of the depth gimmick paved the direct, highly profitable path for the rapid rise of high dynamic range and native 4K resolution across all major brands. High dynamic range, or HDR, actually delivered exactly what the previous generation had falsely promised: a drastically more lifelike, immersive, and vibrant picture that fundamentally alters how you perceive digital media. By vastly expanding the contrast ratio and color gamut, HDR creates a profound sense of depth and realism without requiring a single accessory. It is a passive, universally applied upgrade that seamlessly enhances every single frame of content you choose to watch. When you compare the stunning visual punch of a modern OLED panel running native 4K HDR against the murky, dimmed, headache-inducing output of a 2012 flagship model, the evolutionary leap is staggering. Modern panels deliver perfect black levels and blinding highlights that trick your brain into perceiving three-dimensional space naturally, relying on superior contrast rather than optical tricks. The current technology respects your physical comfort while massively elevating your baseline viewing standard. You, the everyday consumer, ultimately won this hardware war by firmly rejecting the artificial hype and demanding a product that actually fit your lifestyle, Your collective refusal to compromise on physical comfort and practical usability forced a massive course correction that directly resulted in the breathtaking displays we enjoy today. It is a powerful testament to the ability of the consumer to dictate the trajectory of global technological development through sheer purchasing power. We are currently seeing the exact same historical echoes of this battle playing out in the modern push for virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. The identical questions regarding physical isolation, hardware weight, battery life, and the severe lack of compelling everyday content still loom heavily over the spatial computing industry. Tech giants are once again trying to convince you to strap expensive, isolating hardware to your face in the name of next-generation entertainment. Until these modern spatial devices can definitively solve the immense friction problem that doomed their living room predecessors, they will remain highly specialized, niche tools rather than ubiquitous household staples. The lessons of the past are perfectly clear. If the technology creates a physical barrier between the user and their environment, the value proposition must be absolutely astronomical to overcome the inherent discomfort and the steep learning curve required for daily operation. Mastering your digital domain requires exactly this kind of historical insight, allowing you to instantly recognize the crucial difference between a flashy, boardroom-driven gimmick and a genuine life-enhancing upgrade. You hold the power to shape the market by investing your budget only in innovations that seamlessly integrate into your workflow and elevate your daily experience. Never settle for technology that demands you adapt to its flaws, no matter how aggressively it is marketed. The spectacular rise and swift demise of stereoscopic televisions stands as the ultimate reminder that the consumer is the true king of the electronics landscape. By understanding why certain technologies fail spectacularly, you arm yourself with the knowledge to make incredibly savvy, future-proof investments in your own entertainment ecosystem. Keep demanding frictionless excellence. Trust your instincts when a product feels cumbersome, and let the industry work tirelessly to earn its place in your living room.